Hey guys, hello everyone. Welcome back to Java Techie. So this is Mansi. Today we will be talking about an HCL interview that happened recently. So we got a few questions about it. So I'll tell you the approach and the answers to it. If you are new to this channel, please do subscribe, like and share our videos. How to answer confidently and make the interviewer feel like that you are the right candidate for the specific job. So this interview was held on 19th of December for a 2 years of experience person. So let's go over the questions one by one. So the first question was daily activities for your project. So basically here the approach to do it is that you need to tell them that what you do throughout the day, what is the coding percentage that you do every day, and how much percentage of it goes into other activities like meeting, or it could be some kind of lead kind of a role, or grooming. So the best way to answer the approach is that you need to first go through the job description. For example, if they are offering a job that is completely into individual developer kind of a role, you need to focus on telling them that most of your day you spend for implementing different kind of doing the coding activities, implementing features. If it is more of a lead kind of a role, you need to make sure that you also mention that I do my coding part as well and mentor the new team members, or take care of assigning different tasks to different people, helping them with their activities. So these things you need to keep in mind before answering this question, that what is the requirement of the person who is asking this question, which job role you are applying for. So make sure that you mention accordingly. Now I'll just let you know like my day-to-day project activities which I usually tell as part of my interview. So the very first thing is I attend my daily stand-up meeting. We are working in agile mode, so we have a daily stand-up meeting. After that we start our work, and we do have coding throughout the day. In the meeting we discuss any kind of blockers, challenges, or the progress of our task, based on which we plan what we are going to do for the rest of the day. Mostly I am involved into feature development and developing new features, coding, as well as bug fixing and support activity, unit testing. For whatever I have developed, I need to write test cases as part of it. Another thing is there are certain team meetings, even some agile retrospective planning meeting. Also I am part of grooming meetings where we design different features that we are going to develop and release as part of the software release. And also I am involved into a little bit of testing activity. Whatever I develop, I test that as part of developer testing. So that is my day-to-day task. And apart from this, if there are certain challenges in terms of requirement gathering, then I do indulge into different kind of meetings with my peers and the BA, so in order to get a clarity of what we need to do. So this is on requirement basis that we do, but mostly I'm involved, it's like 85% of my time is into coding and rest 15% into team meetings. So that's how, based on the profile they are hiring, you need to answer this kind of question, so that they understand that you are also working in a similar way as per the job requirement is. Now coming on to the next question, which is where are the technologies, what are the technologies used in the current project. So this you can tell whatever technologies you are currently working. Make sure that you specifically highlight the technologies which they have required as part of their job description. If you have worked on those please make sure that you're going to highlight it as part of the technologies you have worked on, or even you can highlight that while giving your introduction, so that they get to know, okay, you are the right fit for the job. So for me, the technologies are mainly Java, Spring Boot, microservice. Then coming on to the unit testing side, I have worked into JUnit and Mockito framework for mocking purpose. Database side, I have worked on both SQL, NoSQL DBs, including Oracle and MongoDB. Now coming on to the deployment, so I have experience with Docker and Kubernetes based environment. Apart from this, I also have exposure to AWS for cloud technologies, Kafka and REST for synchronous and asynchronous communication between different microservices. I also have exposure to Git, Jenkins, Jira, Kibana, Grafana, all these tools for building a particular application. So like this, you can mention the technology, but make sure if you are aware of any of the technologies that are part of your job description, please make sure that you highlight those. Now coming on to the next question, if you are using Java 8, what are the topics you have implemented? So here you can actually specify, like I have worked on stream APIs, give a little bit of description of the streams. Then you can specify optional interface, why it is used, why it was introduced, functional programming, which was the main feature of Java 8, what was the need of introducing functional programming, and what is the entire concept of it, Lambda interfaces. So all these things which are main features of Java 8, you can actually specify them, and you can actually tell in detail like what was the requirement of it and why it was introduced in Java 8, and I have been working in it in my current project. And even if you are using, how you are using it, you can also mention that if that is required. Now coming on to the next question, what is the difference between map and flat map? This is also one of the questions related to Java 8. Like basically in the main difference is that in case of map, it is a function, the function passed to a particular map operation returns a single value for a single input. Whereas in case of flat map, function that you pass for a flat map operation returns an arbitrary number of values as the output. Another difference could be that map basically performs the mapping, whereas flat map perform mapping as well as flattening. Also in case of map, it is one-to-one mapping that occurs in map function, whereas one-to-many mapping occurs in flat map. Another thing is that map is used only for transformation, whereas flat map is used for both transformation as well as mapping. So these are the major differences between the two. Now coming on to the next question, certain agile related concepts like Jira is basically a tool, Scrum, Retro. Okay, so I'll explain in detail. Like Scrum is basically you have multiple Scrum teams which consist of number of members. This Scrum team is basically involved into the execution, delivery and testing of the product. So each Scrum team consists of a specified number of members. These could vary project to project and team to team. This Scrum team needs to be cross-functional, like it's not that one person is specific to a particular technology, another person is specific. They need to be cross-functional based on the requirement. Since Agile is very dynamic in nature, based on the requirement, you should be capable enough to work on any different technology, pick up those tasks and deliver on time. As part of Scrum, there are different ceremonies that happen. Initially, the very first step is grooming process, where a requirement comes in. So we have a kind of technical discussion on how many tasks we are going to form as part of it, the approach and the architecture we will follow to develop that particular feature, which services will involve the changes. So all these things are part of technical grooming session, which involves the team as well as the architects, BA, and other team members. So then comes the sprint planning. In the sprint planning, sprint is basically 15 days. In the sprint planning, we do have a planning meeting where each team picks up certain stories based on their capacity and bandwidth. So if suppose a team has 6 team members, so they will pick up accordingly how many stories can they do within a time frame of 15 days by 6 team members. Now coming on to retrospective. Retrospective basically happens at the end of the sprint, which involves, which actually it is between all the team members of a particular project, which involves different scrums also, and they decide on what went wrong, like in the sprint that just ended, what went wrong with them, what was the loopholes or drawbacks from their end. Then the next thing is what went well, like what were their achievements, and any kind of suggestions, improvements or appreciations for the coming sprints. So these are the few agile related things. Now the next question is, what do you know about microservices or cloud? So again, to answer this, microservice is basically an application which is segmented into multiple small microservices or small services which communicate with each other to solve a particular purpose. And these services are highly scalable in nature. Based on the number of requests you are getting, you can dynamically scale these applications. Cloud, it's basically a technology, a platform which you can use to deploy your services or your application that could be accessible by anyone throughout, over the internet. So basically with micro cloud, you can use any of the clouds like AWS, Azure, it could be Google Cloud Platform, anything it could be. Now coming on to the next question, when you are using request body and query parameter. So basically request body we use as part of post request mainly, or put request. As part of request body, what happens is if some data that is crucial, or you can say it's a huge data that you want to provide to your backend server, and also you don't want it to be seen by the end customer, you provide it as part of request body. It goes as part of request body into any of the format like JSON or XML. Query parameter is basically it goes in the URL, like you see multiple URLs, question mark, key equal to value and key equal to value. So all these things are actually query parameters. You can provide it with any of the request, but it is advisable to add only query parameters which do not have any kind of sensitive data. Now the next is questions on project. So these are basically dependent on each of the project that you guys are working on. So make sure you are well aware of the architecture of your project, how things are working, how the deployment is happening, what are the different components involved, how you guys are actually testing your application, what are the different parameters and the entire deployment process. So all these things make sure that you are well aware of, because you will be asked these kind of questions in the interview. Now the next one is scenario based questions under collection topic. So there could be multiple questions based on collection, like what is the difference between, most common question is what is the difference between list and set, what is the difference between array list and linked list. So these are the very basic questions that you need to prepare as part of questions that come under the collection framework in Java. Now the other one is working of HashMap. This is also a very commonly asked question. like how the hash map works internally. So the correct answer to it is, what happens is, as soon as you do suppose a put, map dot put key value, whenever you do that, internally it calls the hash code method of the object class. So the hash code of it is calculated. Based on the hash code value, it does a mod by capacity. So suppose initially the size usually allocated is 16. So it does a mod by, for example, 16, the capacity of that particular hash map. So it would land somewhere between 0 to 15. So whatever bucket it lands onto, for example, this hash code mod 16 gives you the number 2. So on the second bucket, what will happen is, it will actually calculate, it will actually go to the second bucket. Then it will, using the equals method that is present, it will actually see if any of the key is already present with the same key that you are trying to put. It checks through the equals method. If it is present, it will replace the value with the new value that you are trying to put. If it is not present, it will create a new node and and just add that particular node to the second bucket. So that's how the entire hash map works internally. Now the next question is, what is the difference between HashSet and TreeSet? So the main difference is, in HashSet there is no order in which the elements will be present. It is going to be in random order, whereas if you talk about TreeSet, so these will be all the elements that you enter in the TreeSet will actually be in sorted order. Now the next thing is, what are fail-safe and fail-fast collections? So these are two different types of collections. Fail-fast collections are the ones which when you try to iterate over them or and modify their values, they give concurrent modification exception. Whereas fail-safe collections, while iterating, if you modify them, they don't give any kind of concurrent modification exception. So fail fast are basically list, set, and these are fail fast. Talking about fail safe, copy on write array list is there because it actually writes on the copy of it. Then you have concurrent hash map, which is again fail safe collection. So these are the main differences between and examples of fail safe and fail fast type of collections. Now the next thing is, explain singleton design pattern. This is also a very commonly asked question. Now talking about the singleton design pattern, this basically restricts the creation of more than one object of a particular type of class. So what usually happens is, for example, in you can say Spring Boot, by default the scope is singleton in nature. So you just have one bean, one type of bean. Whenever you do a get bean, the same bean is returned to you. So that's what singleton design pattern is also all about. What happens is, as soon as if you want to create a class as singleton in nature, so you need to have a private constructor of that particular class. You cannot provide setter methods to it. Then also you need to have all the member variables which will be private. The only way to create it is, you will provide a get instance method where you will do a double check inside the synchronized block. You will check if suppose this particular instance equal to null, then you will create an instance and return it, otherwise you will return the existing one. Synchronized we are using in case of multi-threaded environment. For this, I will attach the link to it in the comment section. You can go through it. Now the next is, explain solid principles. So basically, solid principles are a way of designing your applications. These are already known ways through which you can actually design your application and implement it. So solid principles, S stands for single responsibility principle, which is like, suppose you are trying each class should have a single and sole purpose. So for different functionalities, you need to create different classes. One class will only have one purpose. O stands for open close principle. That means the module should be open for extension but closed for modification. Now coming on to L, L stands for Liskov substitution principle, which means to say that the derived classes must be completely substitutable by their base classes. Now, okay, coming on to I. I is interface segregation principle, which means that you should create smaller interfaces with specific functionality, so that whenever you implement that, you need not to override a lot of implement a lot of methods. Only the class should not be forced to implement unnecessary methods. It should only implement the ones that is required. So we should segregate the interfaces in such a way that they have a sole purpose for implementation. The last one is dependency inversion principle. So in this case, basically the high level modules should not depend on the low level, but both should depend on the abstraction of it. So these were the solid principles. Now the next one is explain qualifier and auto-wired. So these are two different concepts. First I'll explain auto-wired. So @auto-wired is basically used for dependency injection in a Spring Boot application. So as soon as like you specify @auto-wired inside some class, you auto-wire. For example, you have a controller layer which is annotated with @rest controller. Inside that you are trying to auto-wire a service. Suppose you have service class which is annotated with @service. So inside your controller you specify @auto-wired, then you specify service. This means that as soon as the Spring container will start, it will first create the service bean. Now it will start to create the controller bean, and it sees that this service is auto-wired inside the controller. So what it will do is, it will inject that service bean inside that controller bean, and then that controller bean will be created. So it will first create the service one, then the controller one, and before creating the controller, it will inject the service inside it, so that you can call different service methods from the controller bean. So this is auto-wired. Now coming on to qualifier. Qualifier is basically used, suppose you have two services. So suppose you have a service interface and you have two different implementations of it, service 1 and service 2. Now in your controller you are trying to auto-wire the service. So this is an interface. You need to provide which implementation you need to auto-wire, otherwise Spring will get confused. Auto-wire basically happens first by type. If it is of single type, like you just have one implementation of service, so it will automatically see, okay, this is only one type is there of this service, so it will inject it. If that is not the case, then it auto-wires by name. So the name needs to be the same, but here we are trying to auto-wire the interface. So we are not directly auto-wiring the particular implementation class. So what will happen is, it will get confused. This is an ambiguity situation. So in this situation, to resolve the conflict, what we do is, we specify @qualifier annotation, and then into like round braces, we specify the name of the bean like this. Suppose you have specified like @qualifier, and then into round braces in double quotes, suppose you specify service 1 like this. The bean name of the implementation class that you want to auto-wire. If you want to auto-wire service 2, you will specify like this on top of that particular bean that has been auto-wired. So this will automatically inject the service 2 dependency inside the controller bean, so that in order to resolve the ambiguity kind of situation. Now the next question is how to secure your REST APIs in Spring Boot. So there are multiple methods of doing that. I won't go into a lot of details, like we usually use Spring security for this particular purpose. So you can go through the Spring security documentation, or maybe if you want a tutorial on Spring security, you can comment on the comment section and I'll try to create a new video on Spring security part to explain like how to secure REST APIs and maybe give you a small demo of it. Now next is OAuth. This is again a security concept. We can go through it later. Now the next question is it's a programming question. Find if the given string is palindrome. Okay, so basically palindrome is that the starting and the end of that particular word should be the same. So this also you can easily implement. I will share the link of it in the comment section. Reverse each word in a string. Again, these are basically coding questions, so I'll share the solutions in the comment section itself. You can go through them. Now the next question is, what is the difference between primary key and unique key? So the main difference is primary key is basically a unique key or an identifier for a particular record in a table. Primary key, we cannot save null to it. However, only one null value is supported in case of unique key. So unique key, suppose when the primary key is not present, in that case the unique key can also be used as a unique identifier to identify the records. So these are the main differences between the two. Now coming on database design basic principles. So this is also a question based on design principles in the database. We can have a separate session for this one. This basically involves like designing of the entire database, like how to organize your information, how many tables do you require, what should be the relationship amongst different tables, what are going to be the primary keys of each of the table, then also applying the normalization rules. So all these things are actually part of the database designing. Now the next thing is tools used in your project. So this depends on project to project that what tools are using, like build tool you are using Maven or Gradle, then for logging purpose you are using Kibana, metrics you are using Grafana, Actuator, or you are using Jenkins for building purposes. So there could be different set of tools. If you're using any performance related tools, any kind of Veracode for vulnerability scanning. So all these things are part of different kind of tools that are used in your project. So make sure that you are aware of it and you know what is the purpose of each one of the tool that you're using in your current project. So guys, that's it from my side. I hope this was informational to you. If you need any kind of help, please feel free to reach out to us. If you need any kind of help on any specific topics in Java or some kind of interview tips, you can always comment and let us know. We will try to create a new video for the same. And thank you so much guys. Thanks for being part of our channel. If you are new to this channel, please do subscribe, like and share our videos. Thank you. Have a good day.